Spotify CEO is finally addressing Joe Rogan's use of racial slurs in previous podcasts over the years. In a memo to employees, Spotify CEO Daniel Ek writes in part, "While I strongly condemn what Joe has said and I agree with his decision to remove past episodes from our platform, I realize some will want more. And I want to make one point very clear. I do not believe that silencing Joe is the answer. We should have clear lines around content and take action when they are crossed. But canceling voices is a slippery slope. Looking at the issue more broadly, it's critical thinking and open debate that powers real and necessary progress." Here's Rogan apologizing for using those racial slurs.
I know that to most people, there is no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist, but whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist, you f***ed up. And I clearly have f***ed up.
Joining me now is Peniel Joseph, the founding director of the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas at Austin, where he is also a professor of history. I have a number of questions, sir, about Joe Rogan's response there, but where he was saying first that this was taken out of context, his use of the N-word. What do you say to that?
Well, I understand his defense. I mean, I think at times he's used the full word while trying to talk about people using it in a negative context. And I think in those situations, he's thought to himself, he can say it. But I think that there's a larger problem here. I mean, when Joe, in terms of when you listen to the podcasts that have been deleted, when he lands in Philly, a predominantly black neighborhood with friends by accident, and he's saying, it's Planet of the Apes, and he was trying to show that he felt it was like Africa. Planet of the Apes is a 1968 movie with Charlton Heston about a future where apes have taken over our reality. It has nothing to do with Africa. It has nothing to do with black people, unless, of course, you have a racist stereotyping of black people as apes, which historically has occurred. They called Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther Coon Jr. In the South during the 1960s. So there's a troubling pattern here of not just anti-black racism, but also, Mr. Rogan has introduced Gavin McInnes as a great guy who's the leader of the Proud Boys, a white nationalist group that has proactively tried to foment racial violence and racist violence in the United States. He's been on board with the folks who are vaccine deniers and other kind of deniers. So I think there's a larger context here. Now, Spotify has the right to say that this is okay, but I think it's important that, the 11 million people who listen to him, I think advertisers have to own up to what exactly he's doing. So this is not a call to somehow cancel Joe Rogan, because if anything, what we've seen is that the right wing is much better than progressives at canceling people when we think about all the anti-critical race theory legislation that actually is canceling speech and canceling black history and the history of the Holocaust and the history of injustice in this country. So I think this is a complex issue, but I think we have to admit what he's actually doing.
And I wonder how you think Spotify is handling this, because this isn't one episode. This is more than 100 episodes when you're talking about racist language and you're talking about misinformation. That is a lot.
Yeah, and I think what we have to all admit is that there's an audience for this, right? We have an audience for conservative radio and television. We have an audience for liberal or progressive radio and television. The audience for what sometimes people call movement conservatives it dwarfs that of liberals and progressives. So there's a bottom line here. Spotify, this is not Spotify's greatest moment in terms of moral clarity and vision, but they're saying they want to defend Rogan, because really Rogan, bottom line, gives them, makes them a lot of money. They invested $100 million in Rogan because going to get a return that's much bigger than the $100 million investment, right? What consumers can do and activists can do is say, look, we shouldn't stand on this ground morally, politically. And it's not just about speech. Of course, we should have speech where people disagree with each other, people have debates with each other. But when people are spreading and fomenting divisive language and talking about whether it's anti-Black racism, whether it's anti-Semitism, this is fueling that. This is fueling that. This is fueling the lie of the stolen election. It's fueling the lie that the vaccine is some kind of plot. He's been connected to people fueling the lie of Obama not being born in the United States. So a lot of this has to do with those 11 million podcast listeners who think to themselves, hey, I'm not racist. We all have to be honest that, look, there's a pattern here, and you may be implicated in that, whether or not you like it. Does that mean canceling, get rid of Joe Rogan? That's up to Spotify, but certainly consumers can make their own decision of do they want to be part of this ecosystem where he's saying this is real talk, but if that real talk includes this racist vision of America, do you want to be a part of that?
Yeah, look, it's about business too. We see the stock price. This is no coincidence. Neil, it's great to see you. Thank you.